Today's conversation is going to touch on two really important subjects, I think. And one of them is AI, and everyone says, yeah, of course, it's always about AI. But actually, when you mix it together with the other ingredient, we're going to talk about culture, the intersection between AI and culture, and actually spin it on its head and talk about how can actually AI positively impact culture and hospitality business. So actually you can actually provide maybe better humanity and experiences in your hospitality business, and it thereby become your competitive advantage. Because lots of people talk about culture as a competitive advantage, but often struggle to actually have the headspace to think about it, and more importantly, implement it, which is actually the hard bit. And I actually believe, as today's guest, Brandon, that actually AI is probably the best opportunity we've had as hospitality leaders to actually strengthen our cultures, because actually it takes a lot of challenges away by actually removing, very routine-based work that staff spend a lot of time on doing today. With that said, welcome to the show, Brandon. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Just to set the context a bit, it would be great to hear, Brandon, your story, because you are a typical hospitality person, started very early on, to the journey, maybe we're up to what you do now, and actually the business you're in now, and actually the work you do around developing properties and hotel management, and how actually your focus is on delivering and also developing that business.
Yeah, sure. As you said, I started pretty early on in the industry at a line level position at a larger resort, and didn't think that I actually was going to be in hospitality for my career, but found out that I was really drawn into the guest experience component, and really interested in the multifaceted aspects of the operation and all the team members in their respective disciplines, whether it be hotel operations, food and beverage, marketing, sales, how that all came together from the back of house to then the front of house and creating memorable experiences for guests. And so I started to act like a sponge. I was able to surround myself with really great mentors and leadership teams that I've been a part of. And as my career grew, and I was fortunate to work across all of those operational spectrums, it further energized me to explore this other side of the business, which is developing teams and encouraging them and empowering them to create these memorable guest experiences that drew me in originally. We're a Maine-based real estate development firm that also specializes in hospitality real estate development. And then we have a hotel management arm that I'm fortunate to lead, along with several talented team members here at our home offices, our corporate offices, as well as talented teams that we've built and at our properties. So we specialize, I would say, in adaptive reuse projects or complex projects, but we also are approved across the spectrum. Our portfolio is Marriott, Hilton franchised. We have some third-party management. We also have independents, but it's largely in the upscale soft brand component, where we look at projects that are a sense of place and have a meaning and have a large effort in giving back to the community in some ways. And we're just driven by this kind of story-like mentality throughout all of the layers of the development of the project, to the fruition of it, to then, as that brand, as that identity or sense of place comes to life throughout however long we're involved, or however long we have the project, which is long term. So we're very intentional, and that's now where my career is that I again lead the hotel management team, and along with my colleagues and peers, we love what we do.
just to give it a bit of a context to help the listeners tuning into this conversation. So what are we talking about from I know size is not everything, but I think it's quite interesting when we come to the culture point in a moment also, because you already mentioned there's many different arms to the business, therefore different demands and different skill sets that needs to be in the business. But what are we talking about, like from a size point of view of an operator, staff, locations, and so on?
Yeah, we're usually around from a size hotel or F&B operations, usually around 150 keys to 200 would be the largest, I would say. But multiple food and beverage outlets we're very comfortable in doing. Our staff size, it's all dependent upon the project, of course. We have properties that are more of kind of the apart hotel concept that has quite a bit of tech influence there, with a lighter staff model, to the full service multiple F&B outlets that you know there's typically a team member per key, and depending upon the market and seasonality, it alters based on that. But yeah, we range depending upon project. But I would say from a size hotel to multiple F&B outlets, we're very comfortable in that. And our staff size for those larger are around 100 associates, give or take, based on season.
Yeah. How many hotels are you operating right now and managing?
Yeah, so we're growing. We're at 7 total right now, either operating or under development. We have two in development, one as a third party manager that we'll talk a little bit about, I think, later on, that has some really great sustainability initiatives, and then another which is an adaptive reuse for an old bank building we're really excited about here in Portland, Maine, where we're based. That will be a leading hotels of the world, opening up in the spring of 2027.
And now you made such a beautiful segue, and then I think that's really interesting, because in a time where I would say that maybe sustainability have lost a bit the agenda, but actually we are now in the summertime, and there's a lot going around in the world with actually principal climate impacted challenges. Talk a bit about that project, because I think it's a super interesting project and actually shows a bit of what I would call, first mover on an area that you probably think we're a bit away from still to do. Yeah.
Yeah, this is our kind of a scale initiative. This is our first property in Vermont. We were selected as the third party manager by the wonderful ownership group out there that had been working on this project and have been working on the project for a while. They decided to franchise with Marriott as a Tribute Collection. It'll be the first Marriott globally to be all electric, net zero carbon LEED platinum. And so with that comes quite a bit of intentionality in the development side of things, complexity certainly from an operational aspect, but this true purpose-driven mission of sustainability in all facets, which we as an operator and a developer have always had KPIs and initiatives for our sustainability efforts per year, 3 to 5 of them. This project takes it and spins it to every initiative is a sustainability initiative, which I think has driven us to then start to look at our total portfolio and every project we're going into with that purpose a bit more. And this hotel is opening up in a couple months. Actually, it's almost ready for us to do a grand opening, which we're very excited about. But it's located in Winooski, Vermont. It's called the Sugar House Hotel. It's 115 keys. It's got a rooftop restaurant. It's set on a 104-acre nature preserve. Winooski is just outside of Burlington, Vermont, and it's just such a great community. There's an excitement for this hotel. The sustainability initiatives and the incorporation of the community don't just set in the operation. It's the design, again, intentionality, I use that word, every element of it is within that framework of the story of sustainability, the story of a sugar house, which is very much sugaring in Vermont is well known across the world. So it's a fun project. It's got a theme. It's got a brand, and we're just really lucky to be a part of it.
And it actually also leads into, when you get selected to do that, is also because I guess that the ability to deliver when it goes live becomes really, and that's actually where we started out talking about, the operation, and that the quality of the operation often determined of the quality of the people and the culture you have. What is your approach to how you build culture? And then we can add on the power of AI afterwards, but actually what is like your foundational pillars of how you look at culture and how you develop that over the years, I guess, because culture is often something, there's always a culture, but intentionality around it and actually developing it as you go is often the most hardest bit of it.
Yeah, as I had said, I was able to spend a lot of time, or been granted a lot of time, with great mentors and great leadership team members. And I've worked for some very successful hotel management and development companies through my career growth. And Fathom was an opportunity to take all of the greatest things I took from all that time and to help develop with our team here, a hotel management company that very much was associate-centric. Our culture is created, or our values were created collectively as a team of both senior level leadership, but also our all the way to a line level, what mattered the most to them. And we kind of set that standard as our guiding light, or, when we go into project, clarity of concept that we always revisit. Does that really make sense? And sometimes the decisions that we made on some of those values that are true to us, with being a good person and humility and, taking the positive initiative to drive the force together, almost this positionless like aspect where every team is comprised of the whole unit. Of course, their own disciplines, but it's, we win as a team, we fail as a team type mentality. Yeah. And sometimes that's not always the easiest route. But I think it has proven with our team's that purpose-driven kind of statement, and not deviating from those, even if it was the easiest way to get to the destination. I think it's proven to have great success with retention, and has presented inclusion for the team to feel like if we won an award, which we've been fortunate to win several as an operator for the larger franchises, and we usually tend to strive for market leading financial performance, or market leading RevPAR, or at least be proud of what we're putting out there. There's a sense of pride. It becomes not just a job or a means to pay for a lifestyle. It becomes a bit more than that. And then that encourages, us, if you have the right leadership, which we again created this all as those leaders, to reinvest and to create opportunities. Our president of our company, and our principals, I think one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, and why we continue to push so hard for that dedication to the values, is at the principal and president's level, it's our responsibility to continue to grow, because we have surrounded ourselves with these really talented team members that kind of bought fully in to our culture, because we paid attention and we gave them presence and inclusion to now create further opportunities for their career growth. Yeah. And so that's kind of now our role is, and what I a portion of my time is really focused on is hopefully growing our business, because we've done such a great job with our retention, with a fair amount that started with us, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, still being with us.
Oh, yeah, that's quite very strong retention in of it. So you have definitely spent some time on defining I can hear, and how do you then bring this to life in your organization to actually ensure you actually retain these great people, yeah, the right people in the right seats? We talked a bit about the book Good to Great before we went live, yeah, and it talks a lot about the companies that have the ability to, retain the people that was actually critical for the business development. Nobody is indispensable, but there's always some people that's culture carriers, I say, and actually make things happen. What is that you've done like in a day-to-day? Because it's very much day-to-day culture, and then it's like a workshop or this happening, and then it's really what you do every day that defines culture, in my view, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, we have one hotel that is a Canopy by Hilton, Canopy Portland waterfront, that, their thread line for that brand, that's that brand from Hilton, and what we do so well in that day to day is positivity, and really celebration. It's kind of it's celebrating the moments at a heightened level when there's success, and then when there's failure, it's looking at them through a positive lens of, hey, what can we do better, rather than come with it at a disciplinary standpoint. It's more of a collaborative, let's get through this together, let's recognize XYZ. And so I think with that hotel, it's very similar to all of our hotels. Is in a multifaceted operation like this, you can strive for perfection, but if that is your main destination, it's hard to focus on the things that led up to any sort of acceleration towards that perfection. And we all want to be that, but I think it's important to just give acknowledgement and be that level of, I guess, fun in the workplace, and then always have some sort of framework as far as policies and procedures. But those are the things that should be just ordinary, and I think when you can balance your approach of again, looking at it through a lens of always collaboration and being positive, and taking the wins and celebrating them to the rooftops, and taking the failures and getting that through them as a team, then that creates and fosters an environment of communication. And I think that's super important when it comes to retention, is that the team members, if they feel like they can have the opportunity to have a conversation when things get to a point that potentially they're looking at a different opportunity, that allows us to evaluate whether or not that is going to be a good fit for them and for us, or another way that we can resolve it. So I think it's fostered a sense with all those elements, just an open dialogue, which I think is important as an employer and also for the associate.
If the word Airbnb has ever crossed your mind, whether you've thought about listing your home while you're away, or you got a property sitting there, or you're already hosting and starting to feel the weight of it, this one's for you. Here's what nobody really tells you before you start. Hosting sounds simple. You list your space, guest book, you collect your income, but somewhere between managing 3 different platforms, responding to messages at odd hours, adjusting your prices, and chasing calendar updates, it stops feeling like an income and starts feeling like a second job. Lodgify is what lots of hosts wish they found sooner. Everything lives in one place, your booking sync across Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and the rest, your guest communication, and your own direct booking website, so guests can come to you directly. They're also launching an AI assistant this summer that handles your guest messaging automatically, so the whole operation can actually run in the background. For Marriott listeners, there's a special offer. 20% off all yearly and bi-yearly plans. Use the code MAVERICK20 when you check out.
And do you then have special rituals where you either make the celebration happen or open up for the dialogue? Is that like planned in some kind of way? Is there structure around that? Or it's up to the individual manager at each location to come up with that plan?
It's a little bit of a hybrid. There's a scheduled employee recognition quarterly, associate of the quarter type mentality that we have a great HR team at our company that helps establish kind of those expectations. But then we really like to leave it gives some autonomy to our leadership teams at the property to establish their own associate recognition programs. And the framework isn't, this is the quarterly celebration. This is the caterer that we're using. This is, that would be for us too institutional and boxed in, where all of our projects are not like that. They're very, again, sense of place and individual in their own right. I sometimes joke that, although we're just 7 properties and we're growing, everyone has their own identity. So if my calendar looks like I'm jumping into 4 different hotels, I almost have to remember that I'm talking to a completely different character or brand identity, which then leans itself back to that recognition program and giving them an autonomy. I want it to be authentic to that team. I want it to be impactful. And those leadership teams can then craft that with just a very delicate framework of, hey, we need an associate recognition program outside this quarterly. And they usually come up with really creative and thought-provoking ideas that then catapult us to thinking about other things within the business that we could do better.
Yeah. Do you have a great example of that where you thought that like you gave them, in principle, the mother company, you give them this loose framework and then they gone away, as you said, and done something you thought, well, I never thought they would do that with these parameters. But actually, funny enough, often when you leave people to it and says, this is what I want, these are the criteria it has to happen within, actually beautiful things happen. And I've heard that from many, many CEOs that's on the podcast, actually, when they let go, without not giving full, but they still needed a framework, but they needed like, these are the game rules of the game, go and play it and show us what you come up with.
Yeah, I think, there's a multitude of examples, but I'll give a looser example because I don't want our teams to be competitive and say, you just mentioned us. Housekeeping Week is one of those kind of nationally celebrated hospitality weeks for our dedicated housekeeping team, which is a discipline that we appreciate at a very high level. It's very it's hard work, as is every position in the hotel, but that week is there to celebrate. So our framework is, here's a budget that we set and we should program a housekeeping week. Yeah. The things that have generated from that, whether it be food trucks scheduled throughout the week or we notice that, our housekeeping team they have backpacks or something like that, something that's a little bit more personalized to what that housekeeping team at that particular property would really enjoy, has elevated housekeeping week across our portfolio. It's just, all the teams get involved. It's not just the senior leader, the general manager, that HR person. It's, okay, sales team gets involved. How are we going to appreciate housekeepers? And it creates this connection that is across the disciplines, because it's amazing. Some hotels I've been in, and although let's just say it's 100 employees, every discipline, it's almost like their own silo, like they're working in their own space and they're not aware of the other folks that actually are employed at that hotel. That energy behind housekeeping week really, I think, put a flag in the ground of how it defines how our culture is. It's very thoughtful. It's very genuine and authentic, and it's universally adored every year by the team, and they all then get to connect with the housekeepers on a housekeeping team on a different level, and that fosters that sense of community I kind of been talking about with the associate base.
Yeah, and that's a really, really an interesting thing about also how to break down silos between, in hospitality, we often talk about front and back of house, yeah, and the challenges between that operational team, sales and marketing conflicts in principle. And actually, I love that idea about actually celebrating groups of employees, and everybody has to celebrate them, yeah, for the hard work they do, and actually just acknowledge they're there or understand, oh yeah, that's actually a very essential, like the dishwashers are quite essential in a restaurant, but who have a week of celebrating the dishwasher, yeah? It's a really interesting idea, yeah? I can see that, and that brings together people in a different way than it would normally be, because normally it would be about a task, wouldn't it? Like, you have done a great task or you have not done your task in principle, yeah? Or I need you to do a task.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the front of house and back of house, and specific into the sales, because the common phrasing there is, that I've seen is, we'll sell the dream and you guys try to manage it. And I think our sales, and I learned this in my background, there's a fair amount of sales and marketing, and I learned so much from some of the operational leaders in how to sell, to deliver something almost the best way I could to the operational team that didn't have them fumbling over trying to manage it, but more so looking at how to go above and beyond what clearly was a booked piece of business and detailed well. So we actually encourage a lot of our sales members to sell with the operation in mind, tee them up for success, and they'll make everyone, the operational team should and would make everyone look like rock stars. And that broke a lot of those barriers of front of house, back of house, and communication, where some of the best colleagues I have, either present or previous, are chefs and front office managers and director of rooms and housekeeping managers, because there was that cohesiveness and communication and collaboration.
Yeah. You talk about, in my preparation, I picked up this, like you say, you describe yourself as the operational shield for frontline staff, because that's really what we're talking about here. And I would love to hear what the concept, the idea about that, but also what are you actually shielding them from? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think our role at Fathom, especially if we're selected by a third party, or as a third party, or even, our ownership interest when we develop a hotel and own it and then manage it, is I think we help at the Fathom corporate office level of taking any feedback from that ownership component or any feedback from the brand and helping disseminate that, so it's not just carried as, on someone's shoulders to then carry the weight of that. It's actually a team area. And there will always be points of continuous improvement, but how do you deliver that message? And I think we do a good job of delivering it in a way that fits within our culture, that then motivates for the better improvement and maybe a bit more efficiently. And so I think we always like to be direct and have our team members be accountable. But I think that it's because there's so many layers to the business, it's easy to come in and have a very high level view of something, and there's certain things that are working in the background that you might not see on the surface level, that it's just important that you gather all of that and you have a really good opportunity to have a sit down and talk through that together, rather than just deliver it and you're not sure the things that have already been worked on or already been succeeded. So rather than just a protective barrier, because I don't think that's successful either, that you should just take that all on and that doesn't go anywhere. But I think it's important that our team is able to gather that feedback of what's really based on, again, continuous improvement and getting to those wins and successes that then we can all celebrate at a high level, but delivering the message in a way that, or understanding those other facets that might be happening that are going to get us to that destination and giving updates to when we get there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well that, we talked a bit about the AI angle. I think it's really important we get that in now, because now we talked a bit about the culture, but again, like we see in the world of efficiency, especially in hospitality, that's been under pressure around the globe, different places in the world, different challenges, but they all come down to actually we need to get more out of less in principle. And AI has been seen as this, or digitalization first during the pandemic, and now AI have been seen like this savior. But often you see it as this sub-optimizing in principle, because exactly we put more and more technology in that just put pressures on the people behind the technology, or the people that has to do the hospitality in principle. Please talk a bit about, why do you think actually sometimes that the industry get this wrong, because they think that technology will solve the staffing crisis in principle?
Yeah, we look at AI as a benefit for sure. I don't think it's in our minds going to be taking away positions, but more so allowing more time to spend on what hospitality is. The foundation is the guest experience, and creating moments that the guest or diner or anyone wants to return or can speak about afterwards. How can we leave an impact? And as the industry had progressed and there became more reliancy on seeing data and analyzing data, and on the asset management front, looking into the P&L and trying to get the profitability of the business to be at the peak levels, that in turn came quite a bit of administrative work, time spent on that then took away from being on the floor, or saying hello to the guest, or recognizing the guest rather than in a hospitable way, and almost turning it into a transaction, because this redundancy of admin work. Yeah. So we incorporate AI. It's such a powerful tool, and it will continue to evolve in travel and hospitality and food and beverage from now on going forward, and investing time and learning about it and how you can incorporate it in your business is really important. But we utilize it at Fathom to really on the back of house admin component to shore up that time that's needed to commit to that. We have it analyze some of our SOPs. Sometimes we have it create a foundation of the SOP and then modify from there, which reduces the time but significantly. We use it in our accounting components and our HR components for messaging. Just more so of those, okay, it's someone's birthday, recognizing that it's someone's birthday, but then instead of spending that time writing the message out in an email, it's automated, and then we can spend time, and this is more internally guest facing or associate-centric aspects, but celebrating that birthday, right? With doing something there. From a guest point of view, AI is being used by some of the brands for, quick answers to things, FAQs, those types of aspects. And we use that too in some of our portfolio, especially the apart hotels, the Evelina in Portland and the Weldon, where it's, that consistently asked question that something can be generated quickly to them. But ultimately, once they use AI, and I see AI as a really great assistant to do the monotony, once they're on property and they're there, the experience needs to be from a human component in my mind, and utilizing AI to give more time to recognize and act and be proactive for that guest when they're on property, to me, is the way that we use it. It doesn't reduce FTEs. It just gives time back that would then give us more return in the guest service scores or the satisfaction components or the return ratios, or maybe the guest wants to stay another night or, buy that extra enhancement when dining because they're getting that personalized one-on-one connection, because we're not having to look at our computers and have to assess or produce a report, because it can be produced within moments and pretty accurate, especially with certain prompts and revisions.
I think it's quite interesting. I talked with somebody else that talked about AI. He looked at his business as the human has a nervous system. We all know when we get stressed, our nervous system goes in flight mode. Yeah. And he said, like, it's a bit like AI, how AI can be used in operation to reduce that stress, not taking people out, he said, but actually reduce that stress so actually they have time for human connection. And actually asking the right question for the guest, or if you're a manager, right, asking the right question to your staff and finding the right answer to these questions, instead of just presuming because you're on this doing mode all the time. I need to solve the next thing. My list of tasks is just building. Yeah. So you get very task oriented instead of like actually human. Yeah. You become a robot because you are so much under pressure because all these tasks are there. Yeah. There's a window that's broken. There's water floating in the basement. The cleaners are not on with the rooms, but they have to check in now. There's something wrong in the restaurant. So there's so many tasks that needs to be done all the time. But actually, some of those tasks are taking away, or you get an overview quicker and you get alert quicker. You can actually do something. You be proactive as manager, as an employee, but actually means that your nervous system is more calm, and therefore you are probably more likely to stay in the business. Because I think most people, there's two reasons I think is, first of all, they're in a place there's chaos. So the stress levels are very high. So therefore I can't work here, or the managers are not performing. Yeah. You leave your boss. Yeah. But I think often I think these are the two main reasons people don't stay at work. Yeah. They leave for somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in our business, it's certainly, there always will be something. There always will be challenges. But I think if you can reduce, as you had stated, if you can reduce some of that chaos by utilizing technology to help offset it, it allows for, yes, retention, but it also allows to focus on what I think we hire for is, we want a team to really enjoy the business that they work in, and identify with what brought them here. So when we hire someone, we want them to know what the purpose of the hotel is and what the mission is and the community aspects. But we want someone that really wants to be a part of the destination of the guest experience. And so really, if they look at through that lens, they then are looking at AI as a tool to offset, to give them what they're truly there for, and what we're identifying with. And I mean, even to the analyzation, we use it in the development side when we're looking at products. Just for instance, we had a couple vendors in a newer hotel we're developing source out fitness equipment and within the space, and we were able to upload that rendering with the 3 fitness equipment manufacturers and say, is this a good layout for this style of hotel? And analyze between these 3 equipment vendors, what would be more of the fit for, this. And it generated the analysis, the layout that would be most conducive, everything within, a moment's time. And we were able to make the best choice from that analyzation. And it would have taken one of our PMs, hours to
days,
do that. Sometimes days, to do that cross-reference. when, it's an important element, but there's so many other things that are also important that need time, and it just creates efficiency, and it gives it gives a point of view that maybe we wouldn't have had.
How do you see AI's role? Because we often talk about things that impacts either the business development or the customer experience. How do you see that the role AI play in the employee journey? Yeah. What kind of importance it's going to have there? Because I guess there's a bit of, some people are quite scared about AI touching my employee journey because that's confidential stuff there as well. But you said a really interesting thing, actually using the time to celebrate the person around birthdays. I think that was a great example where AI actually are leveraging, because everybody has these birthdays either on a list or on a schedule system, and they say, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Then they write the text, as you say, so it's announced to everyone. But actually what really matters is that personal touch points by buying the cake or the book or the gift and the face-to-face celebration. That's what people feel and remember. Yeah.
Yeah, we use I'll shoot out a vendor that we use. It's a human resources kind of software called Change Engine, and so we introduced that about a year ago, and we're still kind of developing that with their team. But it overlays and creates just a structure to our onboarding and our pathway for that, the first 30, 60, 90, that integrates with prompts for the manager for check-ins, and streamlines all the paperwork that's needed to be onboarded. And then that's where those recognition automated messages for associate birthdays or tenure, seniority recognitions, but it also includes the manager or leader of the team with those prompts as well prior to the actual date of recognition. And so then the human component of it is to give the framework of what you do with that prompt, So again, we've utilized kind of technology or software with some AI incorporation to give time and consistency to then allow the human characteristic, which is genuine and has a bit more personalization. But it gives a little bit of time for not a significant investment. It's the ROI of it is amazing.
Yeah, and I guess also you get a framework where you could put these ideas to life very quickly. And I think that's also why, like, normal people practices or initiative can actually take quite a long time to reach the front line. And actually with technology and AI, you can actually get there and actually spend that time out there as a manager instead of sitting and creating that document or whatever it is now. SOPs you talked about before as well. I'm just working with somebody on a new guideline for the service and hospitality, and they already had something, and then they had some ideas and inspiration, and actually just that we could put that together very quickly together with their culture book. Suddenly they had something that was much stronger than before, and they could then take that very quickly, create it into content for their online communication platform and so on and so on. And it's like before, when I myself was creating content like that, it would take us 6 months just to release a fraction of that, like 10% of that was created. And now it's more about deciding what to release than actually being worried about if you can get it produced. Yeah. And actually being very selective about that and make sure it's implemented before you just throw a lot of information at people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a process almost every year, I would say, and look at our SOPs and analyze them. But we're doing this actually currently now, is really refining what is our SOP playbook and what are the things, really asking it, what are we missing? And it's generating certain things that I think have been just generated in the field and created based on that particular operation that isn't standardized or consistent that need it to be, because whether it's a liability or a risk or it's just, whatever it may be. But yeah, we have it basically do an audit, run as an assistant to do an audit and give us thoughts to either act on or not.
Yeah. As you're growing the business, Brandon, what is you're growing the business, you have different brands going on. What is the one thing that you will not compromise on as a business when it comes to your culture as you're going forward? Because often when you grow, that's where things starts to suddenly become thinned out. Especially culture can be challenged in growth. Yeah. And then growth is needed because that creates opportunities for people. But actually the most difficult thing is actually that, the culture will slip sometimes or will change a little bit. But what is the one thing you believe that you need to hold on no matter what? That's the core of your business.
Yeah, it's a great question. Authenticity, I would say, is really important to us, and that can mean who we do business with as far as vendors. Like, are they authentic? Are they genuine? Are they good people? Are they there to help and for us to also help them, all the way to who we hire, as a team member, and also to the projects that we take on. Is it true to do we love it? Are we encouraged by it? Do we feel like we can add something to the project? Do we think that we can bring it to fruition? Do we think that it fits our trajectory? Again, back to the authenticity. I also like the term, I like the term curiosity or thinking outside of the box. I really want to keep that through line as we grow, is like, how do we really encourage our team to always think different? Whether that be, for instance, a while ago, we had created our own internal loyalty program for a particular hotel that was a branded hotel that already had the strongest loyalty program globally. But it was an overlay. It was almost a recognition program as an enhancement that was themed to the hotel. And it took a group of people that thought differently about these kind of road warriors that stayed with us day in and day out. And they were getting points too, but we had all of this data. We knew exactly what they ate at our restaurant, when their birthdays were. It's taking that element that we were talking about from an associate standpoint, where we know all of this personal data, but we do know it about our guests too, only because they've stayed with us hundreds of nights out of the year. They become part of our team as well. And that, I think with that kind of curiosity and thinking outside the box, that generated these really special moments. And I think the being authentic and thinking outside of the box, we kind of just want to keep no matter how much we grow.
What is the most significant learning you have the last couple of years, Brandon, as you have moved the business forward, developed the teams and so on? And we're living in we always talk about that in business. We live in a time of change, but you can say it's really been since the pandemic. We thought the pandemic was wow, this is crazy, yeah. But it seems like as an industry, we're still accelerating, like a catching up game in some kind of way, yeah. What has been your learning as a leader in business?
I can't do it all. Surround yourself with really great team members and include them in the process of growth, and it will be much more rewarding. I think also being disciplined and not chasing probably every opportunity, really defining our values and what we care about, to the previous question, and not losing that. I think, COVID during that time kind of put everything in perspective for everyone. And really what came out of that was this more cohesive associate-employer relationship. And we kind of had that already prior, but it just kind of enhanced that. And I think then it really drew the line in the sand that we wanted to define what our values were and stand on them and not deviate from them. And they were created in that same time frame where those important factors of the team members that we have, what they care about, have not, and I don't think will ever change back to prior that significant time. So I think it's a multi-prong answer, but I think it's, you know, really making sure that I was being a good leader by not defining it by taking on everything and trying to do everything. But then more so creating a team and having our team members then create their own teams that have just generated a really great community of stakeholders that are all involved and want to see the company succeed and see us grow, and are just excited for the celebration of the wins.
Yeah. I love that. What is the one question, Brandon, you wished I asked you, and what it would be, and what would you answer?
Yeah, this is a good one. You know, I think really from my point of view, you had great questions. To one. Two, I think just maybe from our company side, our growth, maybe where we're looking at and what we're kind of trying to do, and just from a Fathom standpoint, you know, we've created this great team base, and we've got some projects on the horizon, but really our kind of viewpoint and growth and how we want to scale. And to answer that, we're kind of looking from a growth standpoint, from Maine, where we're based, down to Florida on the Eastern Seaboard, and kind of specializing in these bespoke, true storytelling hotels, whether that be managing or developing, or co-investing and developing and managing. But I think we're always opportunistic and really looking for how we can bring what we just talked about in this conversation to life in other places, i.e. we're scaling in Vermont, but we'd like to scale out to other markets as well.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting again. And then, you know, as you talked about earlier, how do you actually then, you know, how do you take the framework on? Yeah. And how do you find the special places, but also then, you know, you need to find the team to get that right. You need to be quite disciplined about your culture and the way you're utilizing that, and bring it on to the next place. If people want to know a bit more about what you do, and maybe want to reach out to you and connect with you and hear more about the journey and the learnings you have, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way. You can shoot me a direct message there. We also have our website, fathomcompanies.com.
Yeah.
You can send a message, but always available on LinkedIn, and look forward to connecting with anyone that reaches out. And I really appreciate the time.
We'll make sure that all that goes in the show notes so people can find it. Thank you so much, Brandon, for your time and your insights and your learnings. We send you power and energy here from the Maverick community. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.